welcome to episode 10 of a Disney Life podcast. We've made it to 10 episodes already. Can you believe that, Missy?
That is so exciting, and I can't believe that. This
That
is just
is
flying
exciting.
by.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to thank each and every one of you that tune in every single week to give us a listen to hear us chat about all things Disney. This is a place where friends new and old can come together to talk about Disney destinations and our adventures in those destinations. My name is Rachel, and I'm joined by my co host, Missy.
Everybody, it has been so fun this far. I can't believe it's already been 10 episodes. We love hearing your feedback. We are trying to improve each week with our new episodes. So please hang in there with us and continue to send us that feedback so we can try to make this the most fun it can be for all of us.
Yes, and I'm going to add to that. So, just in the last week and a half, I received two comments from people that they said, one said that while she was in her car listening to us, she responded to us because it really does feel like a conversation. And that's exactly what we wanted when we started this, that we wanted this to be a conversation. And so I love hearing that somebody said that and somebody else mentioned that just it felt so natural between us, and it really does, because this is what we're doing. We're talking about things that we love together. So thank you so much again. And we love the feedback. We love the comments, and please keep those coming. So, on today's episode, we are revisiting Missy's recent cruise on board the Disney Dream. Back in episode 6, Missy gave us a rundown of her plans for her family's cruise. So, today we're going to get a breakdown of what actually happened and how it all went. Additionally, we will go over some of our most fun activities on board a Disney cruise ship, as well as letting you know when we think the best age is to start cruising with little ones. And finally, Missy will finish us out with her tip of the week.
So, as we discussed back in episode 6, I recently had a cruise that I booked with a great discounted rate that Disney had out this summer. And for this particular cruise, we sailed at the end of June on a 5 night sailing. It was a Western Caribbean sailing out of Fort Lauderdale on the Disney Dream. So, I'm going to go through a little bit today on what we did to prepare for that, how we got down there, what our experience was like in Fort Lauderdale, as well as some details about what we did on the ship. So, like I said, this was late in June that we sailed, and it was a 5 night sailing. I live up in Pennsylvania, where it's pretty easy to fly to Florida from a few airports that I consider close, which means about 2.5 hours away. But the kids thought that this would be a fun chance for a summer road trip together. When I was originally thinking about it and said, like, okay, let's do it. This wasn't really a budgeted trip for us because it was one of those summertime discounts, the restricted rates, like we had talked about back in episode 6. And obviously, the most cost effective way to do it for us would be to drive. I hadn't really thought it all through when I agreed to it that this cruise was out of Fort Lauderdale, not Port Canaveral. Uh, and as you know, Rachel, they're not too far away, but they're not super close either.
You're exactly right. Yeah. And that's something, if you're looking at Disney Cruise Line, and prices are going to be a little bit better in Fort Lauderdale most of the time. So when you see that, make sure you know where you're sailing out of. Because people do like to add on or end with a trip to Walt Disney World. And if you're going to Fort Lauderdale, you've got a little extra bit to travel to get to your next destination.
That's right. So in my mind, I was thinking, when you look at maps to see how far it is from my home down to the Disney World area, it'll tell you about 16 hours. Of course, I'll need at least 16 bathroom stops en route because that's how I roll. Much to my family's dismay, but apparently they love me anyway because they continue to travel with me.
Just
And
remind
then
them
when
of
I
their idea
looked,
for a road trip.
it's a real road trip. We hit all the roads, all the
Yeah.
exits to the bathrooms, basically. No, it wasn't too bad. But my initial thought was thinking we only needed to get as far as Orlando. So that extra few hours tacked onto the end really made me think, okay, we need 2 solid days to do this. I could push it leaving super early in the morning or even late at night, driving overnight to arrive in Orlando. But I was not going to push it with that extra 3 or so hours, which we knew would be more once we considered traffic and bathroom stops that could be needed. Uh, I just didn't want to do it all in a day. So for this trip, it was me and my husband, Levi, our 2 daughters, Gracie and Annie, and Gracie's boyfriend, Avery. So, Gracie and Avery have been dating for 3 years now, and he's been on several vacations with us. He's kind of like my guinea pig for traveling because he's willing to try anything and he'll tell me honestly what he thinks. So, this was his first ever Disney cruise. I wasn't sure what to expect because I know not all kids were raised hardcore Disney fans like mine were. So, I also didn't know how he would do in the back seat of the car with our family. Making it a
Yeah, that's
family
a
of five.
true test of your relationship. Let's go on a road trip down the East Coast.
Yep, and there were a few jokes and maybe not quite jokes about that type of situation. Not so much on the way there, but you drive there and then you have to drive back also.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
but for the trip down, there's a lot of anticipation and we were all excited to get going. So, we departed on a Thursday for a cruise that was sailing on Saturday. I would have loved to leave a little bit earlier in the day on Thursday just because I like to have that extra time. We always tell people arrive at least a day before a cruise. So I
Mhm.
would have loved it to arrive even a little earlier than we did, but we had some work obligations and it just didn't work out for this trip. So we ended up getting on the road Thursday at about 4:15 p.m. So not too bad. We had put in some full days of work. We had a lot going on, but it worked out. Okay. And we made that first day. Our plan was not to exhaust ourselves right off the bat. So we figured around 6 hours was probably a reasonable time to get behind us the first day because our plan for the second day was to drive the rest of it and make it to Fort Lauderdale. I did not want to be the person who had any length of trip left the day of the cruise. I said, no matter what, we are getting there before midnight Friday
Absolutely,
night.
yes, yeah.
And spoiler alert, it did work. We did manage to do it, but phew, that would have been
I mean, seriously.
a very quick trip report if
Yeah.
oh, we didn't make it in there,
Yeah.
the snow cruise. That would be not funny, not a funny situation. I understand that. But luckily for us, it worked out pretty well. So we ended up staying just south of Richmond, Virginia, which is about 6 hours from home for us. We take 95 pretty much most of the way down, straight down the East Coast. You're counting mile after mile, and it all blends together for a while. If you've ever traveled that part of the route before, you know that traffic around Washington, D.C. can be pretty crazy any time of the day, but some times of the day in particular. We really wanted to get through there later in the evening rather than in the morning when rush hour would be starting. So that was the goal and we did complete that. We ended up just staying in a Hampton Inn right off of 95 that night. It worked really well. It was pretty inexpensive, and we fell asleep quickly. Everybody was happy to lay down in a bed and be out of the car.
Yes, not be cramped in anymore. Get ready for the next day.
At this point, I'm pretty sure I was thinking, oh no, that was only 6 hours and the trip is like 20. It's like you barely moved at that point, right? But we were up bright and early, and I was impressed with the kids too. So, with the room types we had booked, I don't know if they didn't have connecting doors at the Hampton Inn. I don't know. It's not something I really keep up with, but we did not have connecting doors. Our rooms were right next door. But I was thinking I was going to get up and shower and get ready and then go pound on their door. And by the time I was out of the shower, they were ready saying, let's go. So
Oh,
I was
wow.
pretty shocked by that.
Good for them.
So it was about 6:30 that morning we got moving. I was pretty impressed with the Hampton Inn had like a little, so they do their included breakfast, those standard type inexpensive hotel breakfast, but they also had a little to go bag, little brown bags out by the front desk that had, I think it had a yogurt. Some of them had a banana, some had an orange. There was a granola bar, little bottle of water. It was a nice little thing to grab and go. So we were happy with that. We took a few of those and got on the road. We did stop a few times for bathroom breaks at places that weren't really worth mentioning and detailing because you don't really need to hear all that. But I do have a few that were notable stops along the route. One of them was a Kenley 95 truck stop, which was in Kenley, North Carolina, which is a really cool place. So they had all kinds of stuff there, different kinds of food, but they actually seemed to have a ton of stuff. I don't know the appropriate term, like to soup up your truck. If you like drive an 18 wheeler and you want fancy
Okay.
lights and all kinds of things, like they had all kinds of jazzy
Mud
stuff
flaps.
going on in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, well beyond mud flaps, like fancy oh my goodness, I'm spacing on the word. Hood ornaments, gear
Yeah.
selectors, all kinds of neat things. So we spent some time going through there. They actually had like their trailers, like not the trailers, but the tractors of the tractor trailer inside the building that you could get photos with. Like it was that
Wow.
giant of a place. So
Okay.
this was one of those stops that, by this point, the rest of the family was thinking, I'm not going anywhere. I don't have to. Let's just get there. Mom needs to go again. But me and one of the kids needed to go. So we stopped and told them on the way home, we should probably make it a point to swing by there because it was a pretty cute place. But if you ask the kids, their big destination and the reason that they thought the road trip sounded fun in the first place was to visit Bucky's.
Uh,
So Bucky's seems to be all the rage. Have you been to a Bucky's, Rachel?
yes, and I actually think back in May, I probably was at one of the Buc-ee's that you stopped at off of 95 because my sister lives in close to Jacksonville. So you
Okay.
probably stopped at one about 2 minutes from her house.
Oh, that's fun.
Uh, but yeah, so they've slowly started making their way over eastern side to where we are in the southeast. But yes, I have been to the Buc-ee's. It's always good for a bathroom.
Yes. I love that they had, I don't know if this is something they always have. We have been at them a few times before. Our first experience was back when a lot of people weren't traveling during COVID, so there weren't as many people in them. We walked into this one it was the Florence, South Carolina one off of 95. And it was so busy, I almost turned around and went back to the car because I had just stopped at the last stop and I really need to go in there. Oh my word, it was so crowded with people, and I couldn't help but just take out my camera, my phone, and record a little bit to send to people back home. Like you would not believe what this is like because we don't have them close to here.
Okay.
Now, days after we returned, one opened in Virginia, which is the closest to us. And we have now seen billboards start popping up in our area, like the 300 and something miles away or
Wow.
something like that to next bucket.
I say 80 something miles.
Yeah, nope, it's like way far away.
Wow,
It'll be a whole
that's
day of it.
insane.
So anyway, we stopped there. Um, and we grabbed it. It was around 11 a.m. We had those little grab and go from the Hampton Inn breakfast, but we stopped there. Of course, they've got their giant cups of soda, which I did
Mhm.
say when we were getting them. I'm surprised that they use the styrofoam. I don't know if it's normal styrofoam or if it's the traditional styrofoam that lasts forever, but I was surprised it wasn't a plastic cup or like a thick paper cup. But my main concern was them. I felt like my thumb was going to push right through it. Like as I was pulling it out
Yeah.
of, like you're struggling to get it out of the holder on the wall next to the fountain beverage machine. And by the end of the trip, I don't remember exactly which stop it was. It was one of them on the way home. My husband, who declared that he absolutely loved his Bucky's cup, put his finger right through it, and there's the
Yeah.
water pouring out into the cup holder of our vehicle. So there's fair warning to you. Be a little gentle with your Bucky's
Yeah.
cups. So we're big water drinkers, and of course, the kids have their Owalas and their Stanleys, and we've got Yetis and all kinds of different water devices. But my husband, whatever he has, likes to have a cup of ice with just some water in it, and then we refill all day long. It's my main duty. He doesn't need me to be the GPS in a vehicle anymore, like in the olden days, because now the truck tells him where to drive. He needs me to be the drink filler. So I'm there. I'm refilling the water, refilling the water. So Bucky's was a great stop because we bought bags of ice. They'll like do a cup fill. I don't remember if it was 25 cents or 99 cents. It was a pretty insignificant amount to take
Yeah.
one of their giant cups and fill it with just ice to go to.
Yes.
So we got our giant sodas and our big cups of ice and some breakfast sandwiches, got back on the road again. We made another stop at the Georgia Welcome Center, which was
Mhm.
a beautiful place, and I would spend a little more time there if I wasn't really trying to move along. Our next stop was the Bucky's in Daytona Beach. So I think there's another one, maybe St. Augustine. We skipped one on the way down. We had planned
Okay.
on stopping at 3.
Well, then that's the one that I would have been at. Yeah, so there's one kind of between Jacksonville and St. Augustine,
Okay.
and that's the one that's close to my sister's house, but yeah, so we were there pretty recently, because we were getting on the road to go back up north to
Mhm.
Tennessee, and so we stopped by Buc-ee's, one more bathroom break, and I got a large Fountain Diet Coke, so that's my on the road fuel.
You didn't put your thumb through it, did you?
I did not this time, no, but my children have definitely put their fingers through styrofoam cups.
Okay. See, there you know, I'm not crazy then. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So at this point, it was about 6 p.m. on Friday. Our goal was still to get to Fort Lauderdale that night. At this point, I was already thinking, oh no, what are we going to do in the morning? I knew our hotel down in Fort Lauderdale didn't have provided breakfast. I figured, well, I'm going to go to this massive bakery counter at Bucky's to pick some things out. So I got, I think, some like a brownie, some scones, just some different things to pack in the car along with us and be able to pull out the next morning for breakfast also. So that worked pretty well. We stayed in Fort Lauderdale that night. I'm trying to remember. Okay, it was a courtyard. It was a courtyard by Marriott Hotel that we stayed at. Gulfstream Way in Dania Beach, Florida is exactly where it was. It actually shared a parking lot with a Bass Pro Shop and the International Game Fish Association
Yes, I remember
Museum or something.
now. I remember
Okay.
now.
So that was an exciting event. So it was around 10:30 by the time we got there.
Okay, so you did make good time.
We did. We cruised right along, but it was a long day. So 6:30 in the morning till 10:30 at night. We opted to not take time to get out of the vehicle and sit anywhere for any, real table service type meals because we
Right.
just wanted to keep moving. Like idle time was wasted time at that point. So we got there around 10:30 p.m. The kids were a little disappointed because the pool closed at 10. And when we asked about that when we got there, they said, oh, that's fine. You guys can go out and use it. So that worked out really well. We were meeting some friends there. We cruised with my friend Beth and her two teenage sons, Anthony and Ryan. They are seasoned Disney cruisers as well. And when we said we were doing this and she saw the rate, she said, all right, she's on board with us and came on down too because she knew it was going to be a good time. So my Annie and her two boys went swimming. I also went swimming because I sat in that truck for a really long time. I was so stiff. You don't know, do you want the cooled seats on? Do you want the heated seats on? Like, I'm like, what is going to help my back? I'm like, do they
Yeah.
make vehicles with massaging passenger seats? That's the next on my list. That's what we
Yeah,
need.
yeah. I
I don't
think
know
I
if
might fall asleep.
I don't know if they put them in pickup trucks, but I'm going to put that on the list for next time my husband needs a truck. I swear, what has really messed up my back were the cooling seats on a road trip a few years back. I had the cold on almost all the way, and I think it just froze things up in my lower back. Now, whenever I go on road trips, I end up super stiff. Maybe it's because I'm 45 and old now, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I went swimming and it felt great. And they had a hot tub there. I used that a little bit too, back and forth. So we had about a half hour relaxation time, went up, showered, got to bed. And then the alert popped up on my phone. Today's the day you could do the health questionnaire. It was like 12:10 a.m. So I went ahead,
Wow.
I did the health questionnaire and I went to bed for a while. So that was nice. So overall, the road trip down, I think, was very successful. We made it there safely and everybody was healthy and we were ready to cruise the next day. So we let the kids sleep in the morning. And at around 9 o'clock, Levi and I walked over to the Bass Pro Shop to check that out. Started pouring rain. So that was fun. But I would rather it rain before you're on the ship than, when you get
Yes,
on
complete
board.
yes,
So
if it's gonna rain.
at least that did end up clearing out. And he got a new pair of flip flops for the cruise. So
Well,
he's a
nice.
leisurely kind of guy. He wanted some new shoes to wear on boards. I don't think I found anything there that I needed, but and unfortunately, that the museum, the game fish place there was not open that at
Oh,
that time of the morning, so I did not get to go there. But maybe
I'm
another
I'm
trip.
so sorry. I am so
Um,
sorry.
but we did have a great stay at that Courtyard by Marriott Hotel. I would stay there again. It's right next to a train station, and just a few minutes from the Fort Lauderdale cruise terminal, from the Port Everglades cruise terminal.
That's good to
It
know.
was it was super convenient. So we left right at 10:30. Of course, we had our own vehicle, so we drove that to the port and parked it there. Our port arrival time was 11 a.m., so that worked out ideally. If you haven't sailed before from Fort Lauderdale, Disney Cruise Line's permanent structure there, the terminal that they will always be using unless something changes and it
Yeah.
needs to be repaired or whatever. Like, I'm not going to say always and forever, but for the immediate future, it's Terminal 4 at Port Everglades. We use the 17th Street entrance. It's the Heron parking garage. There was a lot of construction going on there, but everything was very well signed. There, there were directional signs everywhere. The people in the guard shacks checking ID kind of gave us an idea of where to go to, because it did seem a little off. You felt like you were driving through the center of a construction area, because it wasn't really, it was, you really were driving through the center, I guess. There was work happening on either side. So we were kind of like, do we belong here? Are we in the
Yeah.
right place? Are we going to get arrested? Are we trespassing? But it was easy to get there. Levi dropped us off with the luggage and then went and parked the truck. This, I think, was his first time driving to, well, no, he's driven to the port from home to a couple of terminals in the New York, New Jersey area before, but it was our first time parking for a cruise in Florida. It was very easy. He didn't have any trouble. It was a very basic parking situation. Like I said, our arrival time was 11 a.m. When we got there, they let us right in. Of course, they ask if you've cruised with Disney before. They had a separate platinum and pearl line, so we were all able to go over to that. Went through security pretty quickly. We did take some magic bands. So magic bands from the park will work on the ships if they're the magic band plus bands. Like, so this is the kind that's rechargeable and lights up. The older versions won't work, but the Magic Band Pluses do work as Disney bands on the ship. We had some difficulties with them. The very helpful cast member who checked us in programmed them all the same way, but only half of them worked once we got off
Okay.
the ship.
So was
So
this before you got on the ship that they did that?
yes, they did it right in the terminal. When they checked us in, verified our identification and everything, they did ask if we had any magic bands. And he did make it a point to say to us, they may not work. So here's your, you'll get a key to the world card too, but
Yeah.
you could go to guest services to reprogram them if you need to. So I
Okay.
don't know, did he see something in there that he knew some of them weren't going to work, or does everybody have trouble with that? Is it frequent enough that they tell everyone?
I know the last time that I was on the Dream, I did purchase a Magic Band Plus specifically for use on board, and I had to go to guest services to get it activated to begin with. I could not, it was showing up in my account, so everything was correct, but it would not work for anything, and I had to go to guest services. But I know that I was not asked when we checked in at the terminal if I had one. So I wonder,
Okay.
this must be a fairly recent change that they're able to do that from check-in, which makes sense because I'm sure guest services, that line gets very long
Right.
with
Oh, yeah,
guests.
they are busy there. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were able to be on the ship just before noon. And our first goal, the mom's plan was the moms are immediately going to Enchanted Garden because that was the designated location to work on specialty things like Palo dining reservations. And we were
Nice.
sending dad and the kids. Now, of course, these are older teenagers. So please know that when I say kids, I'm not talking about like sending little kids off on their own. These are kids who have grown up on cruise ships and grown up in theme parks. They are aware of safety. They go with each other, at least in pairs. We were not sending poor daddy off with 4 or 5, I guess it was, small children. These were
Yeah.
big kids. They probably were more of a help than anything. So they headed up to Mars or get up there and ready for that buffet lunch. Everybody was very hungry. Our snacks that morning were just our Buc-ee's desserts from the night before that we all kind of shared. So everybody was ready. My Annie said she was not eating until she was on that ship. Her first meal down there was going to be a Disney meal, no matter what. So
I
we were able
understand.
to make that dream come true for her. So there was a line already formed, and they did open right at noon down there. They had a line for if you needed help with Palo, and one for if you needed help with Remy, and then also for if you needed help with your main dining reservations, if you had any issues with that needed to be adjusted for any reason. So as soon as we gave them our stateroom numbers, they kind of gave us a nod, like, oh yes, like this gentleman, this cast member recognized that situation. Our problem was that when we had booked ahead of time, some of our Palo reservations we were only able to make for a party of one. They were showing up in the system. I had a reservation, and Gracie had a reservation, and Levi had a reservation. So they were able to designate that ahead of time that was an issue, and they had it corrected. This was for both brunch and for dinner. So they were able to combine everything. We were matched up with our friends we were traveling with that were in another stateroom. And we were all able to dine together. So I'll talk about that a little later. So as soon as Beth and I finished with that, we headed up to Cabanas and had our lunch. My traditional embarkation day lunch on Disney Cruise Line is not fancy, but it's what I love. Chicken tenders and fries with a piece of pizza, and sometimes I'll grab the salmon. And I know that they have They've got the crab claws, they've got shrimp and all kinds of stuff
Mhm.
typically on embarkation day. But I don't feel like getting that messy or eating that fancy. I just want to get the good stuff in me and get on with the fun.
Yeah.
What's your tradition, Rachel, when you first get on board? Do you have a go-to?
Well, as far as food, I don't. I do go typically to the buffet just to grab something,
Hmm.
and I don't have a traditional whatever because I eat by what I'm in the mood for, and
Okay.
so I grab quite a few things, and then I eat as quickly as I can because I spend the rest of the time exploring the ship. So that's
Okay. Sure.
my tradition.
And that's what we wanted to get right out there and do, was explore the ship. So as I said, this was Avery's first Disney cruise sailing. The rest of us had all sailed with Disney Cruise Line on this ship before. So one of the things that we wanted to do is recreate some photos, because the kids back in 2019 was the last time they sailed together. So they were pretty young back then. You grow a lot. When you're 18 years old, you've grown a lot in the last 6 years. We had a
Yeah.
few photos they wanted to recreate, which they did over the course of the cruise. We wanted to get Avery around so he could see the layout of everything, and also to refresh our minds, because all
Yeah.
of us have been on several other ships since we were last on the Dream. So it's always good to tour around, see everything, see what's new, get a bit of a refresher. There was a dry dock on the Dream since the last time we sailed, so there were some new things to see with that as well. Our staterooms were ready right at 1:30, so we swung by there to drop some things off. We always have our swimsuits with us on embarkation day,
I
no
can't
matter
imagine why.
what.
It's not like you're pool people or anything.
We had our bags along with us. We did book two. We ended up with two veranda staterooms. When I originally booked with that restricted rate, we booked inside. Then over time, I was swayed a little bit, decided let's do verandas. We ended up with a great assignment. It was two connecting doors, ideal for us with the three kids. Beth and her kids were right next to us. They had really been hoping, keeping their fingers crossed for an upgrade to a veranda with the extra pull down Murphy bed. They did not get that. So she went and spoke to guest services. They told her in the port when we were in the terminal, they didn't have anything at that time and to check back. So she did eventually go back that night after dinner. They told her they had some rooms that had been taken out of service but were now back in service, so they were empty. So she was able to pay what would have been much less to upgrade there on the ship than she would have had to pay had she booked that category ahead of time. So they ended up
Yeah.
not being right next to us, but like I said, we've got big kids. They were able to get to each
Yeah.
other and find each other. Not a big deal. Our castaway clubs were gifts were there when we entered our room. So on the Dream this summer, they were back to that. The navy blue crossbody backpack that's been out
Mhm.
for several years now. Those
Yes.
are handy.
They are.
And we
They
got a
make a wonderful diaper bag too, I will tell you that. I've used them as a diaper bag plenty of times.
We have several of them around the house that have been well used and well loved. I was happy to be able to pass this one off to Avery to use since it was his first cruise. I
Yeah.
wanted him to have a couple special things. There's also a towel, of course, the lanyards and the luggage tags that they give out. So for the lanyards, we received some of the old version and some of the new version. So it seems to depend on what Castaway Club level you are,
Okay.
but we had a mix of those. I had also pre-ordered some Cloudum for the kids. They love Cloudum Blue, and that's a special treat they only get when sailing with Disney Cruise Line. So we had 4 bottles of that ordered for them. And I pre-ordered my souvenir, which was something I've been waiting to get because it's a little big to fly home with. The Bluetooth speaker, the ship speaker.
Yeah.
They've been
Yes.
out for
Uh-huh.
a few years now. I still didn't get one, but this trip, I said, we're taking a truck down there. I have plenty of room in that truck bed with our luggage to toss this speaker. So
Levi gets flip-flops, you get that speaker.
that's right. I'm totally the winner. Even though he's been wearing his flip flops constantly and my speaker's still in the box, I haven't
It's
used it yet,
okay.
but I
It
have it.
doesn't matter.
It makes me happy. So our muster station for the safety drill was in the movie theater, so that was handy. I love being inside. I don't love being outside and in the sun and the heat
Yes.
for the safety drill. Although I was thinking about it when we were sitting there, and it occurred to me for the first time in all these years of cruising, well, hey, wait a minute. If they're the ones that are out on deck by the lifeboats, they get to get on the lifeboats first. Like we're basically round two. So I may be changing my position on that depending on the time of day. Like if it's the middle of the night and I'm like crashing out thinking about all the things in the world that like the problems I can't solve, I may decide like I want that outdoor muster station, but otherwise it was really nice to be in the air conditioning.
When it's 3 p.m. in the middle of the hot Florida sun in the
Yes.
summer, yeah, absolutely.
Then it's not so concerning. So we ended up watching Sail Away from the stateroom. I think some of the kids went up to the Sail Away party. Levi and I and Gracie and Avery stayed down in the staterooms. We were out on the veranda. It was actually the first time Gracie's paid enough attention to see the pilot boat and how that works. And it was
Nice.
something Avery was very interested in. So it was pretty
Mhm.
cool to experience that with them and have them seeing cruising from the technical standpoint and what all goes into it than just enjoying it like a kid. So that was pretty cool. We took some photos of the pilot hopping on and off. We're waving to him. So it was pretty neat to see him hop back in his boat and like he waved to the boat as he
Yeah.
sailed away in his little boat. So that was a lot of fun. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to Satellite Falls. Satellite Falls, I think, is my favorite water on any ship anywhere I've been on yet. And I really wanted to get there that first day. So we went up there at 5. We had 5:45 dinner. So we did not have very long. But I splashed in the water for a few minutes, and then we went and got changed and headed down to Enchanted Garden for dinner. So it's a great restaurant. I know you've
Mhm.
eaten there. Do you
Yes.
have any favorites when you think of the restaurants on the Dream? Or
I do actually really like the Enchanted Garden. I just think it's really pretty in there
okay,
and very calming, and I love animators, obviously, but it's pretty different on every ship that it's on. There's some nuances and some
hmm
differences to it, but I really do. Enchanted Garden, I love the statue in the middle, I love the color scheme, I love feeling like you're kind of in this greenhouse, and
hmm
so that one definitely is one of the tops of my list across the fleet.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
So our dinner the first night, we knew immediately we had a pretty fantastic server. I will be honest and say that the past several years, I have not been incredibly impressed with our servers with Disney Cruise Line. I attribute this to the fact that they are worked very, very hard, most
Mhm.
likely overworked. They're probably covering far more tables than they should be covering. And I've attributed it to just being a staffing issue. But this time we had a server that was so fantastic. I'm now recommending him to friends because he was just that great. And in fact, I just talked to somebody yesterday who sailed this last week, and we had requested him as their server and they had him, and he was phenomenal for them as
Oh,
well. So
great.
I
Yeah.
love to see that returning that level of service that you expect. I mean, Disney cruises are a huge investment for families, so I
Mhm.
want families to have the best time as possible. And I love that we were able to have that experience with this server. So shout out to Bronco from Serbia. Love him and hope to see him again someday. So we had the calamari that night, the Wellington. I had asked for French fries because I often just like to have those steak fries that DCL has in their main dining room kind of as like an appetizer if I'm not feeling like a soup or something that night. I had gotten up to run to the restroom and my fries had come to the table while I was gone. And I sat to eat them and they were perfectly warm. And he rushed right out, so concerned, let me get you more. He wanted to get me nice hot fries. So then I had plenty of fries to share. There was
Yes.
no shortage of food on the sailing. He brought out some special things for us to try. I had the ice cream sundae for dessert that night. They recognized some birthdays that we were celebrating, and the crew sang happy birthday to some of the kids. That was a lot of fun. So that whole first day just went excellent. We had a fantastic day. It was a great way to start out the cruise. After lunch or after dinner, we went back to the room. The turn down service had been there. I've talked about how I love turn down service before.
Yes,
One of my
we have.
favorite things.
We have gotten feedback on turn down service as of recent.
Well, maybe they listened to the podcast because they knew
Maybe they
we
knew.
were so they know that the one room was the room Levi and I were sharing, and they had like the little, like when they make the heart with the
Mhm.
towels that, like, I don't
Yeah.
know, they're like almost like swans. I don't know exactly what it was. There were rose petals on our bed. It was just so sweet. And then in the kids room they hung up some Sophia the First, like a happy birthday banner across the center of the room where the curtain is, and
That's
made
fun.
her a cake with a blue ribbon around it. It was like a towel cake, like
Yeah.
towels folded and wrapped like a cake with a blue ribbon sitting over next to the bed for her. So that was just a sweet way to start it. And I was
That is
like,
sweet.
wow, like
Yes.
this is top of the line here. Like, you cannot
Yeah.
get any better. We decided to venture out a little bit that night. Didn't want to stay out too late. We went down to the D Lounge where they were playing a game show and kind of watched some families play that for a bit. I love the D Lounge. I know on the newer ships, Luna and Sarabi are very popular locations, but I'm just a fan of the D Lounge hardcore. D Lounge and Evolution, I think, is where it's at. It's the big reason that I think that Dream is my favorite ships. We did spend quite a bit more time in there during the rest of the cruise, but that was it for day one. We slept in a bit on day two, and we made it to Cabanas at about 9:30 for breakfast. And first it was the kids were like, "Oh, I'm not too hungry," and then one sends us a message, "I'm on my way," and then the next two, "Oh, we're on our way," and now suddenly everybody's having breakfast in Cabanas, which was great.
Yes.
We made it to Satellite Falls by around 10:45 that morning, and there was a bartender quickly there to attend to us, which was very nice. I ordered the drink of the day. Don't remember what it was, but it was certainly delicious, and I enjoyed it. And we spent hours there. Like I said, it's just my favorite place, especially on a sea day when it's nice and warm. Throughout the day, I ordered a bottle of Moet Ice. So they brought that with a few glasses for me to share with the adults in our group. The kids got some specialty drinks, and we just had a really nice day, spending most of it at Satellite Falls and the other pools, kind of back and forth. We grabbed lunch from Flo's at the pool and some snacks and desserts from Cove Cafe. Of course, we visited ice cream, just all of the things. All of the things I dream of doing on a cruise are the things we did on day two. So that worked out great. And it was also a big night for us because we had Palo dinner that night. So it was Gracie and Avery's first Palo dinner experience.
Mhm.
It was something we were very much looking forward to. And
Yeah.
it did
I think
not.
that's probably a rite of passage for her considering, she grew up going on Disney cruises and now she
Mhm.
finally gets to experience Palo for herself.
Yep. She grew up going to the kids club while mom and dad went to Palo. And no, she got to come along. So that was a special night for sure. I'm trying to remember. So I had the calamari. I always had the calamari there. When we first walked in, the servers were all lined up there waiting to greet the guests. I've done several Disney cruises, but there's a lot of people who cruise a lot more than me. I'm not typically one of those people who spends enough time on board to get to have the time to really know any cast members. And that first night, our server told me, like, she had met me before. And I thought, okay, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
You say that to everyone. Probably you've got it in your record somewhere, seeing that I've been here before. They've got to have
Yeah.
some kind of file or something on you. I would love to
Yes.
know the ins and outs of how that works and what kind of
Yes.
info they have. Right.
Yes.
But I was like, oh, I don't think so. And I was like naming some other times that maybe I had met her, maybe on some other ships. And I was like, no, I did. I don't know her. Well, I felt like such a fool by midweek because it suddenly clicked in my head. Like, her hair looks a little bit different now. I don't know if it was because it was pulled up. I was remembering it. I don't know. But absolutely remembered her. And I remembered specific conversations that I had had with her on previous cruises. So I was thrilled that we had brunch later that week. So I had the opportunity to go back to her and say, like, I remember you, Mari, and you're amazing. And the silliest part was, so Rachel, you may have did you cruise with us? It was on the Wish. So we were at Palo Steakhouse. Yes, it was the time that I had the 2-bedroom suite.
Yes.
Okay. And we all had Palo. This was a big group that we were traveling with, and we all had Palo brunch. And she was explaining to us, and Katie, who we had visited with a few weeks ago on the show, she went into detail talking to us about the hollandaise sauce and the Mornay sauce and like the difference in the sauces and for the eggs Benedict. And I was explaining what she had taught me about the sauces to the kids in preparation for Palo brunch when it clicked in my head. My word, that's the girl.
That's really
She's the one
funny.
who taught me.
I don't remember a conversation on hollandaise sauce, so I must have been at a different table, but I was definitely at brunch, that's for sure.
Well, it made an impression, and now I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, So she recommended, I think it was like a butternut squash ravioli they had. It was delicious. It was a fantastic recommendation she made. Between the table, we had scallops and a couple different things. I mean, we had plenty of food. We got the souffle for dessert, of
Of
course.
course, of course.
And then they brought out, I'm sure you've seen before how they'll bring out the like the large-ish size dinner plate that they'll write on with the hardened chocolate for celebration. So they brought out one to congratulate Gracie on her graduation, and then another for Anthony because it had just been his birthday a couple days before. So that was special and made for a great photo opportunity.
Yeah.
The sun had been shining in on us while we were seated there. We were right along the windows, which meant we had an absolutely stunning sunset. It was gorgeous. Such a fun night. So, but it wasn't over then. After I was completely stuffed, it felt like I couldn't move, wanted to go to bed. Hooray! It's pirate night.
Woohoo!
Pirate night, I tell you. So, some of the kids were really into going to the pirate party. I don't typically mind crowds, but sometimes they just get to be a little bit much for me because they're loud and you sometimes can't move from your 12-inch by 12-inch block your
Yes.
feet are in, that's your spot and you're stuck there. So the kids went and they watched the pirate party and the fireworks. They absolutely loved it. Us adults went up to Currents and sat there and watched fireworks from there, which I think is my favorite spot to watch from. You could still see them all, but you're able to be seated if it's not too crowded up there
That's a
and
great
you're kind of at
idea.
a distance. I mean, that is plenty loud. The music is plenty loud. You could hear everything that's going on from up there. So that's where I spent my pirate night and had a little bit of a drink and then got ready for bed. So I was thrilled that the kids were able to experience the pirate party. They said it wasn't too crowded, so I'll take their word for it, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of glad I passed on that.
I understand.
So day 3 was our first port day, and we were in Cozumel, Mexico. So this was a new stop for both of my kids and for Avery, of course. They had never been there before, and I hadn't been to Cozumel. Well, I guess I lied when I said Gracie hadn't been because the last time I was there I was pregnant with her. So that was 2006. It's been
Oh.
a long time.
Yeah.
We tend to lean towards the Eastern Caribbean, Southern Caribbean itineraries and
Yeah.
Westerns. We haven't made it back to Cozumel in a long time. There were 5 ships in port that day. So we knew that it was important to get off the ship and get to where we wanted to be, which for this particular day was Paradise Beach. Have you ever been there?
I have not been there. I've been to
Okay.
Cozumel a couple of times, but we've done other things, but I have heard amazing things about Paradise Beach.
Well, I will tell you even more. So,
Please do.
okay, thought you'd never ask. So, Paradise Beach was super easy to book online. This was not an official excursion with the cruise line. This is something that I booked independently through Paradise Beach's website. It was pretty inexpensive as far as this type of thing goes, but it is quite an investment. So, I definitely wanted to get there as soon as we could that day to make sure we had a good spot and were well taken care of because I had already paid the money. And, the earlier you get there and the longer you're there, the more value, I guess, you get out of it in my
Yes.
mind. So we were off the ship by 8:25 in the morning, took a few photos out next to the Disney Dream, and then we headed down off the pier. So after our photos, we took a walk through the port area there and took a taxi to get to Paradise Beach. Paradise Beach is an all-inclusive type situation. I think it was $68 we paid per person. It was a little less if you were under 18 because in Mexico, the drinking age is 18. So if you take an 18-year-old there, you're going to get charged for that alcohol extra. It wasn't terrible and it was pretty reasonable considering all of the food and everything that was included. So the taxi ride, I don't remember exactly how much that was, but it is the type of thing that they have set rates. It's on a board, they've got it all listed. You don't have to worry about being ripped off getting charged for a
That's
taxi.
good. Was it hard to find a taxi?
No, not at all. They have, once you exit their port area, it's very well marked. They have a loop there and people there standing and directing you. I had been a little bit worried because we did have a larger group. We had 8 people. I didn't really
Mm.
want to separate, and we were able to do that all in one ride. So that
Oh,
worked
that's
out
nice.
really well. So when we arrived, they confirmed my reservation. They had sent me an email with a code on it to scan me in. And I think we originally paid like half of it as a deposit, and then I paid the remaining amount once we got there. It was a very quick process. They have a little shop there with some different merchandise for sale. Directly across from that, they have a little pharmacy where there was a sign up about all the different medications you could get if you chose to. So they even had
I have
Ozempic, it
heard of
said.
people doing like that.
I said to
Don't
the kids,
recommend.
I'm like, do not even go anywhere near that building. That was a little much for me. But anyway, so you walk in, it is absolutely gorgeous. They have a large pool area with the bar right there. They have a huge beach area with lounge chairs and umbrellas, the little tables for between the lounge chairs. So when you get there, they assign you to a server and then he will lead you to where your seats are. You can kind of choose to an extent, like we're able to say, like, we want to be on this side or that side, whatever. They do have a large area of their water filled with inflatables, different slides you can climb up and trampoline type things, all kinds of stuff. That was an additional $14 per person, and you're able to pick and choose who you want that for. So I knew there
Oh,
was
that's
no
nice.
way I was climbing my bottom up on any of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I didn't bother with it for myself, but I got it for the kids, and they ended up going out there for quite a while in the afternoon. I was able to go out by them
Yeah,
and
okay.
kind of just like hang out in the water, just not use the inflatables at no extra charge. So that
That's
was
good.
really nice too.
Did you notice if they had life jackets available, anything like that?
Nope, nope, I did not notice.
Yeah.
Something I should have looked for, not on my radar because both of my daughters are lifeguards.
Yes, absolutely. It'd be on my
I
radar with my 9-year-old thinking, "Hmm."
And I'm trying to think if I even really saw any really little kids around, and I'm not remembering any, but I did take some videos. So I will look back at that and follow up with that another time to let
Okay.
you know, because that's a good question. So they brought over menus for us. They brought some tortillas over immediately, like some chips and salsa. So if you were hungry, you can start snacking. I had a couple orders of the coconut shrimp because it was very good. I had some type of fish sandwich for lunch. I don't remember exactly what it was, but this was an all you care to eat type situation.
Mhm.
So that every time they saw you approach your seats, they were right there asking if you wanted anything. They
Oh,
kept
nice.
our bucket of icy bottles of water stocked up for us. So we always had water to hydrate, and they would go get us whatever we wanted from the bar. So I would absolutely go there again. The only thing I would not recommend is if you're going there with the intention of spending time in the water of the ocean rather than in a pool.
Mhm.
Cozumel is really just not the most ideal place to do that unless you have water shoes. We had one member of our party get, I don't know if it was from a sea urchin or what it was, but he got something stuck in his foot as soon as he went into the water and ended up
Oh.
having to have that handled once he got home. He did visit the medical center once we were back on the ship, and they said they see this all the time out of
Oh, wow.
Cozumel. So definitely take water shoes if you want to be in the water. Nothing was holding me back from getting out there. I'm like, I can flop myself out there over all of this and just float out. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm not
Mhm.
a small person, but I was able to float just above all this and get out to where it was a little more clear and enjoy the water. But I do think we ended up spending a little bit more time in the pool than in the ocean because of that.
I understand.
But overall, it was a great day. And I mean, it was the end of June. It was hot and sunny. So we just couldn't really spend any more time there than we did. We ended up
Mhm.
leaving by a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon and headed back to the ship because it was hot. We didn't want to push it. We still had a couple more days to enjoy, didn't want sunburn. So at that point, we headed back to the ship, and I immediately went to Satellite Falls because that's what I like to do to cool down after a hot port day. And then we all went and showered and got ready for dinner, which was an animator's palette. So if you've experienced Disney Cruise Line's animator's palette before, as Rachel mentioned a bit ago, it is different on each ship. There is no drawing or animation happening on the shorter cruises. And unfortunately, a 5 night cruise is still considered a short cruise. We were able to experience Crush coming and talking to us and playing around and joking with everyone, but we didn't have any drawing done that night, which was okay because
Yeah.
I know it's pretty popular and works great for younger families with kids who need a little bit more entertainment with dinner. But one of the things I do like about the Dream is that the dinners are a little more tame than your shows that you experience on the Wish and Treasure and the upcoming Destiny. So I didn't mind not having a whole lot going on at dinner. And what I loved is that our server had heard us talking about how much we love the truffle pasta prosciutto, and we had more
Yes.
than I could possibly ever eat. He was
Oh,
so
wow.
generous with those. We absolutely love them. It made things even more difficult for us that he also brought us some of the fried brie, which is from one of the, I think that's on the Royal Palace menu. And he
Mhm.
brought that to us as a special little surprise. So that was
Well,
exciting.
we're all gonna
Um,
request Bronco from
you
now
should,
on.
I probably shouldn't be telling people this. He won't be available to me when I need it. He really was fantastic, though. We did chat with him a little bit the last night and have learned he has been on the Dream for 10 years and he handles a
Wow.
lot of the training with the new servers. So if
Okay.
you're sailing the Disney Dream in the future, he may be there. Every night for dessert, we didn't even really need to choose anything because he pretty much brought it all to us. But I did have the cheesecake that night. I forgot to mention the night before when we got back from Palo, we found dessert in the room because he sent dessert to go with the kids because Annie
Oh,
and Ryan ate in the in the dining room on their own
yeah.
while the rest of us were in Palo, and he sent to go to desserts with them. So that was nice.
That's so nice.
So my favorite thing on board at night after dinner is to go swimming. Basically, my favorite thing to do on board at any time of the day is to go swimming. So we headed up to see what was on Funnel Vision. Some of the group sat and watched that for a while. The Mickey pool had nobody in it, so I was in there for a little bit with the kids, and then they opened the aqueduct, which was exciting. So they got right up there. The kids were riding that. We ended the night in the Cove pool. It was nice and quiet in there, and it was a long day, but it was a fantastic day. So day 3 again, a glowing success.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Day 4 was our second sea day and our last sea day of the trip. It's tempting to sleep in on a day like that, but I don't want to waste time on a Disney Cruise Line
Mhm.
vacation. So I scheduled a 9:30 a.m. royal gathering with the princesses in the atrium. So we were up bright and early for that. My daughters were the only ones who opted in to attend that with me, but they were there with their smiles and happily posed for pictures from mom because
Yes.
they are such sweeties and they have learned how it works over the years. So that morning we were able to quickly meet Tiana, Cinderella, Mulan, and Belle. She took a few moments to chat. Each of them took a few moments to chat with my girls and to pose for some photos. This is something that does require a reservation. So if you're not able to secure one ahead of time, definitely speak with guest services as soon as you board to see about getting a reservation for that. We didn't have a ton of time there because then it was time for our Palo brunch at 10:30, at which point I was so happy to be able to see Mariana and tell her that I did indeed remember her. And I was so embarrassed that I didn't remember it at first. I can do an entire episode, and I think we will do an entire episode at some point talking about Palo brunch and everything that's offered there because it's so incredible. I know Rachel has
Mhm.
experienced it on a couple ships as well. It's my favorite, but the headliners for that day, we love the pastries and bread service at the beginning. I love the eggs benedict. My favorite thing is something that's not typically on the menu, but if you ask very nicely and the chef does have time, they will make you the gorgonzola and grape pizza, which is not anything I ever thought would come out of my mouth as something I would say I wanted to eat, but I saw somebody else order it once and it just smelled so delicious. I decided to try it, and it's my absolute favorite. I also had the
It
chicken.
is amazing. Yeah.
It's
It's
bizarre, but
it's really good. Everybody get it. It's really good.
yes. And I had been talking about it in front of my family for a while now. They were not there the last time I had it. My husband saying, "This, I just don't understand. This does not sound like anything you would eat." And I'm like, "Well, it is." And he had it. He liked it. He was like, "It's okay. I don't know why you like it so much." I'm like, "Well, I do, and I'll
Yes.
fight you
Yeah.
for it." I'm like, if you don't like it, that's fine. So then I had the chicken parm with the risotto as my entree. And this is probably a pretty controversial thing to say. I know the chocolate souffle at Palo dinner is very popular, but my favorite Palo dessert is that chocolate hazelnut, like it's like a lava cake that they serve at the end of brunch. I just could swim in that stuff. It is amazing.
It is very good, yes. Yeah,
So,
you cannot go wrong, I think, whether you have a brunch reservation or a dinner reservation, you're gonna get good food
right,
at
you're right.
Palo.
So at some point we will do a whole episode on that, but for the sake of time today. After that we went down to deck 4, which is one of my favorite places to be, and lounged around for a bit. We were in and out of there with some shopping because of course the stores on board cannot be opened when the ship is in port, so we had not had a lot of shopping time up until this point. The sea day was a great time to do that. Then I decided let's run up to the Cove Cafe and see if they perhaps make an espresso martini. And by golly, they do. So We had a few drinks and relaxed up there for a bit. We played some trivia in 687, which is the pub on board, and decided that, we had so much for brunch and spent 3 hours experiencing brunch, which is how much time I think you need to really appropriately experience what Palo has to offer. So we skipped dinner and we just had some food by the pool that night. The big finale for the night was playing the 2000 movies trivia, where,
Oh,
or no, not movie, it was music. My
yeah.
note says movie, but it was absolutely music. 2000s music trivia, where guess who won, Rachel? We won.
I'm gonna guess
It was
you.
us. It was. Can you believe it? It was actually my kids. I was like, "What even is this song?" I like knew two songs, but they were thrilled to win. It was just a blast. The entertainment hosts are so fun on board, no matter what activity you're going to. It was a
Mhm.
lot of fun, and Annie really, really wanted a medal. So I was thrilled that we were able to come out of there with a medal. We spent a little time on deck floor again after that and took some photos with our medals, and then we decided to turn in early because the next day was our last full day on board and also Castaway Key Day. So we got up at around 8:45 in the morning. We were ready to go and off the ship. We took the tram to get to where the cabana check-in was because we did have a cabana reserved for the day, which I think is also something that we will feature an entire episode on, the experience of having a cabana. So we were in Cabana 12, which I think is an excellent location because you're close enough to easily walk to Cookies to Barbecue if you want. You're very close to a bathroom, and you're over in that portion of the beach where the water typically doesn't recede quite as much as it does over down at the end by Cabana 2021 range. So it was the ideal spot for us. When we arrived, they had a giant fruit bowl there, which was very impressive. It looked better than what I recall having the last time I had one. And the crazy kids decided it would be a great time to go run a 5K. So they did the Castaway Key 5K, came back with more medals because they're just such winners on this
Of course.
vacation.
Yes.
No holding them back. But we had a gorgeous morning for swimming. It was sunny, the skies were blue, the water was amazing. We swam for hours. We went to Cookies 2 barbecue to get our lunch and took it back to the cabana to eat. And unfortunately, around 1:30 in the afternoon, it started to rain. And this was not your typical 10-minute storm that you often will get there, or even 30 minutes. It rained for the rest of our time there. It did not
No.
stop raining until we got the golf cart to go back. And of course, we still had a lot of fun in the
Yeah.
cabana for hours waiting for the rain to stop, but it was a little disappointing. Nothing anybody can do about it. We got back at 4:05 when it was time to get on the ship. The sun came out, so that was a
Of
little
course.
silly. That was a little silly. Again, went right up to Satellite Falls, and then we got ready for dinner at Royal Palace. We were shocked to see a message later that day to let us know that they actually refunded us 25% of the cost we paid for the cabana
Oh,
because
wow.
of the unfortunate weather. So that is truly above and beyond. I was absolutely
Absolutely.
stunned. It never had crossed my mind that they may even
Yeah.
consider doing that. I never would have asked for it. But when they ran the charge for that excursion, since it's considered an excursion, it was minus 25%. So uh,
Wow.
that was really nice of them. Our final dinner was in Royal Palace. We had the brie again, the French onion soup. They had a souffle for dinner. It was a great dinner, a great farewell dinner. I don't think I would have changed a thing about any of our dinner experiences through the week. It was all excellent. And at that point, it was like the worst part, which is when you have to go back and pack. I love that when you cruise, they'll come and collect your luggage at 10 o'clock the night before. I hate that you have to pack your luggage by 10 o'clock the night before. It's
Yeah,
just the worst, right?
it is.
But we went back and we packed, and I think we did a little bit of shopping then after that point, and the kids still had some photos they wanted to recreate. We realized by then that we had never been up to Goofy Sport Deck the entire trip. We were so busy doing things the whole time, but there's just so much to do.
Mhm.
You don't see it all. So we did a little bit more walking around. All of us went to the atrium together to get a group photo on the staircase. So that was really nice. And then we decided let's go to one more event down in the district, which was karaoke. So my My little girls enjoy singing, and Gracie did decide that she would get up because we begged her and pleaded her, please sing something. So she got up and sang, which was a highlight for me because I always love to see her shine on the stage. She sang Mamma
Yeah.
Mia this spring in our school's high school musical. She played the role of Donna in Mamma Mia. So it just seemed like a natural choice for her to choose something from that show. The audience feedback on it was amazing. They were dancing and cheering along with her and being her backup singer. So that was a lot of fun. And it was a great thing to close out the last night of our cruise. So our trip home was not nearly as exciting. We left our stateroom at 8 a.m. as they request. We had a cabanas breakfast, a few last Mickey waffles before we got off of the ship, and we disembarked around 9 a.m. We had no trouble at all getting our vehicle, loading everything up, getting out of the port area. You could see they were already quickly getting things turned around on board, waiting for the new guests to come in for the next sailing. It just always amazes me how quickly these cruise ships are turned around to welcome new guests. It's
Yes.
incredibly hard work. So,
And when you first board the first day of your cruise, it feels like nobody's been there before you.
right. Yeah, you're the very
So
first
it
one.
feels
You are the VIP.
yes, yeah. That
Welcome aboard,
especially when
Rachel
you're
family.
sailing with thousands of guests on board, it's all you.
Man, I miss it. I just miss it. Anyway, so then the cruise was over. So nobody even wants to hear the rest of this. But anyway,
Hey, you got home safely.
we did. So we had another fun new Disney experience for us. We decided to swing by at Disney's Vero Beach Resort on the way home.
Nice.
We had passed the Vero Beach exit on the way down. We're always up for little side adventures when there's time. And we had actually given ourselves 3 days to get home. So this was a Thursday when we were departing the ship. And we didn't really need to get home until sometime on Sunday so we could all be back to work on Monday. So we said, well, let's just see how it goes. We stopped at Vero Beach. We ate at their quick service. It was my first time there. We are not DVC members. We've looked at the numbers many times over the years. It just doesn't make sense for our family. But
Mhm.
Vero Beach is open for guests who want to pay a nightly rate, just like a hotel room. We wanted to just kind of take a look at the public areas and see what it's like. So they were nice enough to let us park there and take a walk through. We had a quick service lunch and then got back on the road. We could see that there were some rains coming and we wanted to try to move in and get ahead of that. So we were en route home around 4 o'clock. We decided, okay, let's see how far we can get today. Looked at maps and decided that our stop would be just before the Florence, South Carolina exit. Because if you remember from earlier in this trip report, that's where there's a Buc-ee's. So we
Yeah.
figured we'd stop close to that so we could grab breakfast there first thing in the morning and get going. That worked really well. We stayed at an Aloft Hotel by Marriott that time. The rooms were nice and clean. They had a ton of different activities to do. I mean, it was like a resort in itself. I can't imagine anybody stays there for any length of time right there along 95. But there was a ton to do there. It seems like it's a growing area. They had a Longhorn steakhouse. So we went in there and had a sit down dinner. Franco wasn't there. It was sad. It's good though. Like, okay.
I know.
Um,
Good chat.
we were we got up early the next morning, went down to the next exit, I think it was, is where the Bucky's was. So I started our day off with that. We did stop at Kenley again in Kenley, North Carolina, at that fun rest stop so everybody else can go in and experience it. We made it as far as Ashland, Virginia, and lo and behold, there was another Bass Pro Shop. So we decided we needed to get out and stretch our legs. So we were there for almost 2.5 hours, walking through the Bass Pro Shop, just seeing what there was to see. Um, and having lunch, or I guess was dinner at that point in their table service restaurant there. And at that point is when I started pricing Lightning Lane for my next trip and getting my brain going on the next thing, because the only way to fix the sadness of coming back from a vacation was to start planning the next one. So we did make it home right around midnight that night. We were happy to get home then rather than giving it another travel day so that we were able to get the
Yeah.
dogs from the kennel in the morning and get back to regular life and have that day to adjust to things. So overall, it was a fantastic trip. It was an amazing way to celebrate Gracie's high school graduation and some time away with friends. So I do highly recommend sailing on the Disney Dream, sailing out of Fort Lauderdale. Very soon, the Disney Destiny will be sailing out of Fort Lauderdale. So that will be a new experience for all of us also. And I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks you for sharing. All right, for today's top five, we are talking about fun activities that you can do on board Disney Cruise Line. So, Missy, will you kick us off with your number five fun activity?
So basically, you just heard me talk about my fun activities for the last hour on Disney Cruise Line, but I can certainly sum them up for you. My first one, my number five, is to have lunch in one of the main dining rooms one of the days. Take a break from Cabanas or Marceline Market, depending on what ship you're on, from that buffet or from the busy pool area. Put on some dry clothes and have a nice leisurely lunch.
Okay. So I would say my number five, if you want to have a great time watching other people, Jack Jack's Diaper Dash is super cute and super fun. This is for infants who are not yet walking. And you basically have their little racetrack and parents on either side trying to coax their child from one side to the other. It's really cute, really sweet. And it always happens in the atrium, and you can stand up on one of the upper decks and look down and watch. But it's a really it doesn't take long at all, but it's a highlight for sure.
And the times for that will be listed in the app. So that's definitely something to
Yes.
keep an eye out for because it's scheduled at certain times.
Yes.
Also in the app is my number four, which
Oh,
is trivia. So on Disney Cruise Line, you're going to have all sorts of trivia, not just different categories, but for different ages. So in the evening, they may have trivia just for older guests, adult guests. And then in the D Lounge, at some point, they may have a family trivia or Luna, or, it depends on what ship you're on, where exactly it's located. But we love playing trivia on the ships. The older the kids get, the more they get into it. They're way smarter than me with basically every category. And super fun going with people that know answers. But even if you don't, it's a very friendly environment. It's a very informal activity that just kind of, makes your brain work a little bit, and it's fun to play along.
yeah. So my number four, I would say the Aqua Duck and or the Aqua Mouse, depending on what ship you were on. But an Aqua Coaster. A couple of the ships have an Aqua Coaster. Other ones will have slides as well, like the Aqua Dunk, which is a slide that basically you stand up on a platform and it falls. That is not appealing to me, but an Aqua Coaster definitely
Have you
is.
done
They're
it?
a lot
I've
of
actually
fun.
done it. It's been a while, but I
Oh,
have
really
done it.
terrifies me to no end. But, the coasters are fun, they're really cute, and you get to see different parts of the ship, and you get to see outside into the water and everything like that too. So that's definitely something. Find when that is open and go take advantage of it. Earlier in the morning, the less line that has formed you'll find.
All right, moving on to my number three. I love shuffleboard and just lounging down on deck four. It may not be a scheduled activity, but it's something that's available to all guests. It is so leisurely. I love being down there on a slightly lower level, a little close to the ocean, and it's just one of my favorite things to do. It's definitely in my top five.
Yeah, I love shuffleboard. It's a lot of fun to play shuffleboard, and I can get pretty competitive at it.
Oh, I've been warned. I'll just sit and
Yeah,
watch.
I know. So my number 3 goes along with your number 4, but I just think the game shows in general. So I mentioned before here how much I love trivia, but I was specifically thinking of Match Your Mate,
Okay.
which is adults only. Children should not be in there for that, but they take 3 couples, one couple who has been probably on their honeymoon, a couple who's been married probably about 10, 15 years, and then a couple who's been married a really long time. And they ask them questions. They take the men out, ask the women questions, bring them back in, see if they can match their mate. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch these couples squirm and sweat and try to figure out if they really know their spouse or not. So I do enjoy that.
All
All right,
right. So
Missy, what do
my
you have for number 2? What?
My number two isn't really so much a scheduled activity as it's something you definitely should schedule and enjoy. It's ordering room service. So when I go to a normal hotel, I would never order room service. It's so expensive. But when it's complimentary on Disney Cruise Line, let them bring it to you. Of course, don't forget to appreciate the cast member who brings it to your room for you. Make sure you have a little bit of cash to give them as a thank you if you're able. But I just love ordering room service. On this trip, we did it just the one time for breakfast, but you can order it any time of day. On trips when we do the second seating for dining instead of the main seating, like we did on this sailing, we would often order the all hands on deck cheese and cracker plate to have while we're getting ready for dinner, just a little kind of snack to hold you over. So it's definitely something that just makes you feel a little more like a VIP when somebody brings your food to you.
Yeah, I love the all hands on deck too. And it really is a good getting ready for dinner snack. So my number 2 would be the specialty dining offers. As we've mentioned, we could do a whole episode on Palo, and I think Disney's above other cruise lines makes it something really special, and really something that people seek out to make sure that they do a specialty dining as opposed to some other cruise lines where it's a nice added bonus and perk, but Disney just steps it up, takes it up a notch, and it's a very reasonable price, even though it's an additional charge. I do think it's very reasonable.
All right, you ready for my number one?
I sure am.
Guess what it is? You don't have any. It's
A
okay.
hot tub.
Well, close enough. It's swimming.
Okay. Okay.
Since I was a little girl and watch episodes of The Love Boat, to me, it just made the most leisurely vacation look to be swimming on a cruise ship. It is sinful to cruise and not enjoy the pool. I don't say you have to get in and submerge your whole self, but be there and enjoy the ambiance at least. But yep, swimming, top number one activity for on Disney Cruise Line.
I am shocked completely. So my number 1 is how I like to relax on a cruise, and that is with a trip to Senses Spa. I think a 90-minute massage is super fun.
That is very fancy, Rachel. You are very, very
Yes.
fancy.
So I try to book one of those at least every single cruise. I have not done, sometimes you can book them on Castaway. I have not done one of those yet, mainly because they're shorter than the ones that you can get on the ship, but
Oh, okay.
definitely
I didn't
a
realize that.
Senses
Now
Spa
I
day.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever done a spa service on a ship before, like at all on any ship.
I love massages in general, and some of the best ones that I've ever had are on a cruise ship. So I like to do that. And I think as relaxing as cruises are, I think going into the cruise, there's a lot of stress from travel and things like that. And this is just a nice way to say, I'm going to take my relaxation up a notch on that
Okay.
one.
Good for you. I love it.
Yes.
All right. Moving on today's listener question. Our question of the week is, what is the best age for your first cruise? What do you think, Rachel? I'll give you my answer second, I think, for today. You go first.
Okay. So I will say, as a general rule, your child has to be a minimum of 6 months of age for most sailings. Some longer ones, they actually require a year age. But for as a general rule, 6 months. Disney Cruise Line used to have a 3-month rule, which I think is very young.
That is tiny.
But I have taken both of my older children when they were still infants on cruises. My oldest when he was 11 months old, and my middle child when she was 9 months old. So cruises, they're great with infants. We had a pack and play that they provided for us. They provided a diaper genie. They kept our stateroom clean and diapers out. You can request pureed food as well, but it was a lot to take on board. Unlike at when I'm visiting the parks, if I ran out of diapers, I could do a quick Walmart delivery order, have my diapers there. If you run out of diapers in the middle of the ocean, you're out of diapers in the middle of the ocean. No. But you can still purchase diapers on board, but you have a very limited selection and it's a lot more expensive. So there's always a joke that when you travel with children, you take everything but the kitchen sink. And I think when you cruise, you take the kitchen sink too. So my ideal time, I would say, to start is when the child can begin to eat some table foods. I think that makes dining time a lot easier if they're not strictly on pureed food. So you're not having to take as much food on board with you. They're a little bit older and can enjoy things a little bit more, even if they are in diapers, just pack plenty. However, I will say if the pool is a big priority, if you are one of Missy's children and you're going to get in the pool,
What?
you need to be potty trained. Swim diapers are not allowed on cruise ship pools. That is not a Disney Cruise Line rule. That is a rule across all companies because it deals with hygienic standards that these cruise lines have to keep to. So if pools are on board are a major draw for you, wait until your child is potty trained.
Okay. I
So
think
Missy, what is your answer then?
that's an excellent answer, I think. So when my kids were little, I thought I waited until they were so old, like so old. I waited so long. It was ages to take them on a cruise. They were 4 and 7 years old the first time we cruised. To me, that seemed like the ideal time because they were old enough to understand that they were out on a ship in the ocean. So I wasn't really as concerned about that from a safety standpoint because I know there are so many safety measures taken, especially for children as I
Mhm.
was. I just wanted them to realize and appreciate what they were doing. I wish now that we had started when they were a little younger because it is just so much easier to go on a cruise than it is to go to the theme parks. I mean, Disney Cruise Line's where it's at. You can have a reservation to meet a character. You can just look at a list and see at any moment where all those characters are and meet them. There's tons of entertainment on board. You can go to destinations around the world and you don't have to walk 12,000 steps to get from the park entrance to your hotel room. It's
Wait on
all
the
right
bus
there.
and everything like that. It's very easy to get back for naps.
Yes, exactly. Everything is right there and contained in that one place. So, like Rachel said, there is a 6-month minimum rule. You would have to, I think, be a pretty seasoned cruiser or a very good planner to travel with an infant. But I would say, toddlers, you're all right on board. There's plenty
Mhm.
for them to do. And certainly by the time you hit 3 years old, when they can take advantage of the Oceaneer Club, you're golden. Time to go. Get on
Yeah,
board. And you're never too old for
yeah.
your first cruise. So don't worry that, you're 40 or 50 years old and haven't cruised before. It is not too late. Get yourself on a ship. Simply put,
Absolutely.
right? And that leads right into my tip of the week this week. My tip is don't be afraid to cruise. Like I said, there are so many safety measures out there. And the feedback I get from people all the time when they just see me posting online and social media and that type of thing about vacationing is, oh, well, I'm afraid to cruise. I've never done it before. Don't be afraid. There are so many safety measures taken. You will forget that you are on a ship. I would be happy to talk to you about what options would be best for you if you're concerned about motion sickness. There are ships that would be better than other ships. There are itineraries better than other itineraries for motion sickness. And then, of course, staterooms that are better than some other options on each specific ship. But if you have any desire to go on a cruise, don't be afraid to do it. Just go ahead and take that leap and get on board. And I think it'll be the first of many.
That is an excellent tip, and I wholeheartedly agree.
And that's going to be a wrap for today's episode 10 of a Disney Life podcast. We appreciate you being here with us. Don't forget, you can join in on the fun through our social media, which is on Facebook. We have a group called A Disney Life, and then we're Disney Life Pod on Instagram. If you have any questions for us and would like to submit a listener question or have any other comments or love to share with us, or we do take constructive criticism too, we can handle it. We're big girls. You can email us at a disneylife at storybookdestinations.com or podcast at storybookdestinations.com. We appreciate you being here listening today, and we hope you'll tune in next time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.